Greetings, programs, and welcome to the Awesome Friday podcast. I am your host, Matthew. Joining me today is my usual co-host, Simon, and we're going to talk about a couple of movies. We're going to talk about one of the Academy Award nominees for Best Picture, The Zone of Interest, and we're going to talk about a new science fiction film from Netflix starring Adam Sandler called Spaceman.
Sorry, what's it called?
It's called Spaceman. It's called Spaceman.
Perfect.
But before we do that, again, Simon is here with me today, as is usual.
Hello.
So, Simon, how are you today? How's things?
Good. I'm well, thank you. I've had a busy week and a busy weekend, but I got another cold off my daughter. This is not interesting to anyone, but if you've got kids, you understand that she had it for a day and I had it for 4, because that's the way my body is now. I've got a question for you, actually. Enough about me and my interesting life. You went to see. If you join us on our bonus podcast for Patreons this week, you'll hear us talk about a lot of Dune-related things, and I encourage you to do that because it's $2, which is a bargain, and also Matt knows a shit ton about Dune. My question is, you went to see Dune 2 last night. Did you get the bucket?
So, no. The bucket was available, and I did not purchase it.
Dude, what? Really? You had a piece of, pop culture history right there at your fingertips?
Yeah, I was tempted to, but I don't know. I have nowhere to keep it. I would never use it.
I mean, that's not true.
Yeah, yeah. And ultimately, I've thought about buying it, but I just don't. I'm trying to put. I've already readopted one expensive purchasing hobby, and I don't. As much as I am enjoying getting back into purchasing movies on physical media, I think my collection's off to a pretty good start. The last thing I actually need is just to collect stuff, and I don't need a sexy popcorn bucket. In fact, we did at one point. We bought one of the limited edition tin popcorn buckets for Wonder Woman, thinking that we would eat popcorn out of it, and nope, never. Wow. We've literally never used it.
And it's an extra step, isn't it? How much was the butthole popcorn Dune holder? How much was it?
Didn't even ask.
Oh. Well, you're far better than I am. I would have whipped that shit up and then never touched it.
I've purchased some collectible stuff recently that I don't exactly regret. I have the Nerf M41A pulse rifle from Alien, and I have a Nerf Star Trek Type 2 phase rifle, and they're very cool, and I enjoy owning them. But I also have nowhere to put them, and I will never really use them. So one day I'll have a room for stuff, and they'll be mounted on the wall, and that's it. But I don't need to fill that room now, because it is years away. It's years away at best, so I don't feel like buying stuff is the correct choice. And the thing about buying the movies on Blu-ray and 4K is that I am watching them, and I could buy all the popcorn. Here's the problem: if I bought the popcorn bucket, I would start wanting to buy popcorn buckets, and I don't need that in my life.
Oh, interesting.
I don't. Part of the reason I try to avoid buying stuff is that buying stuff makes you want to have more stuff, and that's the last thing I need.
So it's interesting because I don't feel that compulsion. If I bought one popcorn bucket, I wouldn't then want to make a popcorn bucket collection. But I have a weakness that if I'm in line and I see that popcorn bucket, and the little voice in my head is like, "You're never going to see this again. This will never be on sale again. You'll never have this option to buy this butthole popcorn bucket ever again." And I'd be like, just buy it. Just buy it. My devil on my shoulder is directly connected to my credit card. And it's a very, very loud voice.
Yeah, and I would just prefer to say yes to stuff that I know I'm going to enjoy. And I don't I was talking about this with my wife, that we have this Wonder Woman popcorn bucket that we never use. She's like, "Well, we could," and I'm like, "Yeah, we could, and we could talk about that with very good intentions right now." And then my bet is it'll never happen. So I don't. I'm after a brief bout of weakness where I bought a couple of Star Trek and Nerf collectibles. I am back on my I don't need stuff train, which I was on for many years and then was basically off for all of last year for some reason.
Mm.
And I'm perfectly happy with that. I'm I don't need evidence. I don't that it was a pop culture thing.
Mm.
I can remember. It's fine. And who could forget? Even just the images.
Yeah.
So
They
no,
know that they knew
I
what
did
they were
not buy
doing.
the bucket.
They knew exactly what they were doing, damn it, and they would have
There's
had
no way
money
they
from
didn't
it.
know. There's no way they didn't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Like yeah. I don't need it.
I
Short
mean,
answer
there's
is I
no
don't need
chance.
it.
Well, I'm sure they're going to sell out pretty quickly. There's no chance it's going to be there when I actually get my ass to the cinema, which is a
Well, actually,
shame.
interestingly, I think you're right because when we got there, um, they were actually there was one on display for sale, and then by the time we came out, they had received more. So if
Mhm.
you would like to buy the sexy popcorn bucket, I suggest you go to a cinema and do that quickly because I don't think they're going to
Mhm.
last. Just like
Mhm.
you won't when you have one. Hey, sex joke.
Just remember to get extra butter. Uh, any good
Yeah,
trailers for Dune 2, Dune Junior?
actually, yes. The I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but ahead of Dune 2, we got Furiosa. Um,
The
what
same
else?
trailer or a new one?
The same trailer.
Okay.
I can't remember all of them now. Now that you put me on the spot, but like it was all trailers I'd seen before, but like seeing them on the big screen for like big importance is the wrong word, but like we didn't get Deadpool's, we got like other important genre trailers ahead of it, and they were universally good.
Hmm.
I can't 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 tell you how excited I am for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes and
Oh,
Furiosa.
yeah. Are they both this year?
Yeah, they're both
Oh,
this season, I think. Actually,
oh fuck yeah.
like Furiosa's in May, I want to say. Uh, I can't remember now, but it's this year for sure. Um,
I just hope the director of the Maze Runner gives us a good Planet of the Apes after Matt Reeves, because it's an extremely high bar.
yeah, I yeah, that's a different podcast though. um, but I remain hopeful. But
Hmm.
yeah, there was seeing the Furiosa trailer on the big screen was
Mm,
enough to. I was already pretty excited, but yep,
yeah,
that's a movie I want to see.
yeah, I can't wait. Good. Well, should we
Yeah.
get into what we're covering this week? What do you want to start with?
Well, let's start with the older of the two, and I think the one we'll either have a lot to say or not very much because it is just that
Mm,
good. Um,
hmm.
why don't you give us the lowdown since you've seen it more recently than I? Why don't you give us the
Hmm.
lowdown on Jonathan Glazer's The Zone of Interest?
Well, it's a Holocaust movie.
Cole's notes
But,
only. Cole's notes only.
but yeah, I'm gonna try and stick to what's in the trailer. It's a Holocaust movie without much, without many views of said Holocaust visually. It's Rudolf Hoss was the commandant of Auschwitz, the main camp in Auschwitz, and he and his family took over and renovated and extended a house and gardens that bordered the concrete wall into Auschwitz. So he could be on site and be a very successful commandant that elevated his career up through the ranks. This is all truth. Um, and much of the movie is us watching him and his wife and his family and their maids, if you like, their serving staff and their animals have dinner and tend to the garden and talk about their jobs and be a family. And
That's the whole movie, pretty much.
and yeah, and then juxtaposed against this is the never ending sound, the general background noise of the fully 24/7 functional concentration camp furnace. Uh, it's hell. I said this to you off air. We think of visions of hell as like being fiery with a dancing devil. No, this film is hell. It's watching people allow and propagate true evil and be a passive observer to that and watching. It's a very clever movie. I mean, Jonathan Glazer is a fantastic director. I watched his last movie, Under the Skin, by myself in a cinema at midday. Um, and if you've never seen Under the Skin, it's Scarlett Johansson is an alien who needs men for reasons, and it has one of the most horrifying, shocking scenes I've ever seen in any film. And I'm not talking about a gross out. It's not. It's when a horror film is not filmed as a horror, but it's horrific. It's one of the most horrific things I've ever seen, and um, this film is in that vein. And I don't want you to be put off because I personally think, as someone who studied this era of history extensively, as someone who's been to Auschwitz, and uh, I think this is one of the most important films about that era, and it should be shown in every classroom because it doesn't demonize the Nazis as well. It shows Hoss as being a young man who is warm to his family, to his friends, to his animals, who is trying to have a career. And I think the most shocking thing about this film is the demonstration of how institutionalized violence and evil can be accepted by most people. And what's very interesting in this film are the tiny little things that show when uh, the people that notice the evil next to them is very interesting to me. The specific characters that react to the evil and the ones that do not is fascinating and horrifying. And I mean, technically, it's a masterpiece. The filming, the color work, the editing, the acting. This is Sandra Hüller's year to go from her acting in Anatomy of a Fall to this, where she's utterly transformed and coldly terrifying in this film. This is her year. And so technically it's a masterpiece. The sound design, we had a discussion on our Oscars sort of preview where you talked about the sound design and I talked about the Oppenheimer sound design. As we were saying the same thing. I now agree with you totally. I think
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard sound design used as a narrative tool in such an effective way, and it is endless. It is a barrage, and there's some really interesting experimental techniques in this film as well that work really, really well. Some jump cuts, not jump scares, but jump cuts that are incredibly effective. There's some interesting very interesting sort of camera and light work for a chunk of it as well. And without talking about the ending, because when you've got a film like this, you're like, well, I know what happened in history. How are they going to end it here? Like, how are they going to draw this to a close? Because I know where this goes. And the film answered that question. And I don't want to say anything more about that. But just, it's a devastating betrayal and so relevant to uh, to our days where there is so much evil, there is so much exclusion, and history is a slippery, slippery path. And it's just there; it's all up on screen. You should watch this movie and um, and uh, take it as a set of lessons as to what we should avoid in the future. So yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
good.
I think that another way to say what you're saying is that you know, real evil isn't mustache twirling; it's banal, and that's what this movie is. That's what this portrayal
Mm.
is. Like Haas is obviously a monster, and he's also clearly loves his family. Um, and it's not like he's like, yes, how can I kill more people? He's just
Mm.
like, well, we're going to
Well,
install a new furnace, and then more people will die, and I will
there's
go
like
home.
business meetings. Yeah, oh god, yeah,
Yeah,
that
it's
meeting.
also like straightforward, banal, business-like, and one of my Sandra Hüller is phenomenal in this. I'm kind of shocked she isn't also nominated for Best Supporting Actress for this movie at the Oscars. Um, because she is so good. There's only one scene in the entire movie that is even anywhere close to being anything violently depicted, and it's her dressing down a servant in the house.
Mm,
And the things that she says, but the scariest thing she says isn't even in that scene. It's she offhandedly threatens someone at some point, and is the most terrifying thing that anyone has ever said in a film, almost. And the film is not shy about like these people are all evil. Like the children, sure, children are innocent, fine. Um, but like in the very beginning of the film, it makes clear that Haas is the commandant of Auschwitz, and it gives you a moment to maybe be like, well, maybe his wife's okay. And then it shows her dividing up the belongings of killed Jewish people from next door, and it makes very clear that these people are terrible very early, and then just lets you soak that in. And I think you're right. I think if this might be one of the most important portrayals of that, I think that the choice to set it in their home and never visually show what's happening over the wall is very important. There's a scene
mm,
where a character comes to stay and realizes what's happening over the wall, and it's implied to me at least that she's able to see some of it, and her reaction to it is visceral.
mm,
Like
mm,
not for her, but for me, it was like a visceral like. How do you not feel that? Like, how are these people desensitized to the things they're literally hearing all of the time? And the answer is that
mm,
they're just totally banal and evil, And the
mm,
kids don't know any better because they've been brought up with it, and
mm.
that's how evil persists, right?
Yeah, totally.
It's a great example of just how evil persists, and I almost don't want to say anything about it. Like the entire setup is just you're watching a family man and his family, and they also happen to live next door to Auschwitz. It's crazy
Mm.
how
One,
effective it
one,
is, and I also really appreciate like it was filmed very generally, very experimentally. I think the style that Glazer described it as was like Big Brother, but in the Nazi house.
mm,
Like he literally set up, I think it was 10 or a dozen cameras in the house. They would obviously rehearse the dialogue and stuff, but then he just set up cameras around the house and let scenes proceed with no crew. So people are
mm,
just acting around the house without anyone else even in the room necessarily with them. And it's
mm,
super effective the way he's able to piece all of that footage together
mm,
and just show that like this is the worst evil.
mm.
This passive. I'm gonna keep using the word banal. Evil is the worst evil.
It's what I thought was really effective is that you get used to the symbolism of Nazis is Hitler. Now remember, Hitler was a very skilled speaker, and he chose a very specific style. But that was not how he spoke in private, and it's not how anyone else spoke around him. And I think Christian Friedel, who's tasked with playing one of the most famous Nazis, doing one of the most evil things known to mankind, like killing, being singularly responsible for the death of millions and millions of people.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't. He played it. He played Hoss as a person, which is quite a brave thing to do. Like you said earlier, there's no pantomiming here at all, and he managed to portray this intense, passive evil of his actions whilst coming across as a little bit of a fucked up guy, but in terms of his priorities, but a really loving dad and an animal man and a family man and someone who's trying to better himself for his family and his career. And that's it's a very difficult and brave thing to do, is to show a monster as a person.
Mm-hmm.
He could have really overplayed this a bit more and made him a bit colder, but he didn't. I think there's one
I
really
mean,
great scene where he gets it's not really a spoiler, where he gets transferred, and he the softness of his portrayal about his sadness of leaving his family. It's just
About
Just
leaving the home that they've built
yeah,
together.
just gut wrenching to that someone so full of love as he was can be responsible for so much hate, and this is a reflection of what is happening in certain parts of the world. Like you cannot
Yeah.
watch this movie and still be pro certain things because it is happening on our doorstep right now, and that's why
No,
it's so
it's
important.
happening in lots of places, but it's happening in, I would say, at least two places pretty specifically right now.
Yeah.
Um, they yeah, I mean that scene where he gets transferred too. It's like it is like it's kind of a almost a tender scene when he's like, I'm being transferred. Like I tried to stop it, but
Mm,
I can't. I'm being it is a promotion. It's better for us. And his wife is like, I don't want to leave our home, the home that we've built. And it's a very relatable scene until you remember that the promotion and transfer means he's going to be overseeing hundreds of thousands of deaths instead of tens of thousands of deaths.
mm,
Like it's a very effective scene, and I will maintain that I think Sandra Hüller, they're both terrible, but I feel like Sandra Hüller is going to be interpreted as worse by at least some people because she has some of the more
mm.
overt stuff, right? Like there's a scene
Yeah.
in that scene where she's like, this is the life we were supposed to lead. Like this, we were told to go east and find living space, and this is the space we
Mm,
found, and we've turned it into our home. And it sounds again super sympathetic until you realize that the home they built is literally adjacent to the Auschwitz wall. Like it's so
mm,
effective
mm.
to hear how disconnected from the evil they are. I saw this movie in a cinema. I saw it a while ago actually, so it's not as fresh for me as it was for you. But like in a cinema, it was so affecting. Like when my wife and I
Mm.
left that cinema,
Yeah, I imagine.
we didn't speak for several minutes just because we
Yeah,
were like had to like process.
yeah.
And I think it's not only is it just very effective in that way, but it's also super artistic. And
Mm,
I think it's a great example of using art to illuminate parts of the world that maybe we don't want to face. Maybe we don't want to
mm,
face how terrible and the way, not just how terrible things like the Holocaust were, but how they were, not why, but how they were terrible is a thing that we
mm,
don't necessarily want to explore in any detail.
mm,
And when we do, it's often like, okay, like the mechanics, how did the mechanics work of the Holocaust? And this is much more of like, how did people let it happen? How did people do this? And it's very upsetting
yeah.
and very affecting. And I think you're right. I think like when it comes time, by the time your son is high school aged and studying world history in grade 11 and 12, I hope that this is one of the films they show him.
Mm,
Because
yeah,
I think that is going to be one of those ones that is important long term.
yeah.
So, and honestly,
I
if it
agree.
wins Best Picture, great. Like if it beats Oppenheimer, great. That's fine. I'm fine with that.
I am too, actually.
Yeah.
100%.
I don't think it will, to
Uh,
be perfectly fair, but I
mm-hmm,
think that and I think the crop of films this year is very strong at the Oscars.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And but if there's only one or maybe two that I think would be disappointing, but not bad wins exactly. But I think that this one would be like I would be very happy if this one won Best Picture because it would be uh, what's the right word? It would be sort of a win for art. And it's interesting that it follows somewhat interesting, somewhat similar themes to this to Oppenheimer's often at certain points is about like did we just destroy the world, and
yeah,
this film is very much like watching people actively destroy part of the world, and
yeah,
I think they make interesting compliments to one another.
mm-hmm, yeah, for sure. How many stars are you giving this film?
Oh, it's 5 out of 5. There's no question. It's
Yeah,
a masterwork
yeah, me too.
in a filmography that's only four films deep and full of masterworks. Um, it's a masterwork.
So I haven't seen Sexy Beast. I've not even heard of Birth. Should I make time for that?
Yep, Sexy Beast is great. I don't actually really know. I think that Birth is a very good film for the right audience. I don't 100% know that you're that audience. but I don't 100% know that anyone is that audience, to be perfectly fair.
Well, now you got me
um,
intrigued.
but Sexy Beast is great. Sexy Beast is an excellent crime film, and you should definitely
Mhm.
watch it with like a very top tier Ray Winstone performance and an Academy Award nominated Ben Kingsley performance.
Mhm.
Um, and you should definitely see it.
Mhm.
And if you can stomach it, you should rewatch Under the Skin. I don't think I can.
I'm never watching that film again. That's like Midsummer, one of the most incredible films I've ever seen. I'm never watching it again, purely because I want to preserve the feeling I have of that movie, which would be diluted if I watch it again. I'll just overanalyze it, and I'll get more comfortable with it. And I don't want to get more comfortable with those movies. That
Maybe
that
that's the
that
point, though. Maybe your comfort with it is something to reflect on.
maybe
Yeah.
maybe so.
Yeah. And how many
Okay,
stars
good.
for you? I said five. You said
Five.
five?
That's five.
Five?
Five.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's a five. No question.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good.
All
Good. Good.
right. So
Um,
let's move on to our entire slightly different movie.
yeah, slightly different. So our next film this week is actually out on Netflix. We're a little bit late,
Mhm.
but it's oh, excuse me. This is the Johan Renck directed Spaceman, starring mostly just Adam Sandler as a spaceman on a lone solo mission to investigate a dust cloud that's formed just beyond Jupiter in our solar system. It begins approximately 6 months into his journey, which is about halfway, and he's suffering from, to put it mildly, some existential loneliness. And he learns pretty early on he's become estranged from his wife back home, and she doesn't want to talk to him. And then he meets a spider creature that he names Hanush, that basically starts investigating psychically his memories and trying to figure out why he's so lonely. And that's kind of all I want to say about the setup for this movie. Um, it's interesting. I find Adam Sandler to be a really interesting performer, um, because sometimes he makes really broad comedies, and sometimes he makes really bad comedies that he just uses as an excuse to like hang out with his friends and make a
Mhm.
movie. And then sometimes he does things like Uncut Gems and Hustle and this, and just reminds the whole world that he's actually a very good actor.
Mhm.
It takes a lot to really carry a film on your own. Um, and I think he does a very, very good job of doing that, of really portraying the ennui of his existence on this
Mhm.
spaceship, of what it must be like to be alone. And when Hanush shows up, the sort of like, wait, is this real or am I fucking crazy? Like, am I crazy?
Mhm.
Is this actually
Mhm.
happening? And he does a really good job of portraying that. And then you have like titans of the industry in the background, like um, Isabella Rossellini is in this as the as the like European Space Agency director, and Carey Mulligan is his wife. And in what little screen time that they have, they are both excellent. And
Mhm.
same with Lena Olin is in this film for like 30 seconds as Carey Mulligan's mother, and she is excellent. And then
Mhm.
Kunal Nayar, who I did not recognize as that guy
Right.
from The Big
Big
Bang
Bang
Theory,
Theory. Mhm.
is is wonderful in this movie. Like, is really resoundingly well acted and performed. And uh, I recommend that you watch it. And now, having said that, I found it a little bit too shallow to be properly effective in the themes it's trying to illuminate. I found it to be a little bit surface level, gorgeous to look at, and well intentioned, and a little bit shallow, a little bit slight. And that's not to say that it's bad. It's just not as good as maybe I was hoping it would be based on the early scenes and based on the performances. I think that it was a little bit underwritten. Um, not poorly written, just again a little bit shallow. And I think the ending dragged on just a little bit too long based on that. Like, if you like movies where people float around, literally or metaphorically, and speak breathily about existential crises, then have I got a movie for you? Um, but I think in this one, it doesn't go deep enough, and then it goes a little bit too long. Is my title of my sex tape. But uh,
Oh
but yeah,
man.
that's how I ended up feeling about it. I mean, I have a hard. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm definitely saying you should watch it. I'm just saying that for me, it didn't really land like I was hoping it. Without going into it knowing very little about it, even like based on the opening like 5 or 10 minutes, it didn't really pay off at the end the way that I wanted it to, the way that I
Mm.
would hope that it would have. And yeah, so my this short but rambly review is me saying it's totally fine, and you should probably watch it. It's totally fine. There's much worse ways to spend like a Friday night at home than watching Adam Sandler act really well against a CG spider for an hour and 40 minutes or whatever it is. I don't know. I think you probably liked it more than me, so why don't you tell me how you felt about it?
Yeah, I did. It's interesting listening to you because I don't really disagree with anything you're saying, but the everything that you've focused on was not just less of a problem for me, but one of the reasons why I liked it as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I love Mia Solaris. Like a person in space discovering their humanity and loneliness is one of my favorite genres. And usually they go spooky and weird, and this one did as well. Um, I hadn't seen the trailer, so I had no idea what was going on. I thought it was. I'd seen the one image of him walking through space, so I was walking through the forest in a spacesuit. So I thought it was going to be like that Pedro Pascal movie, where he's on a planet with a girl and they're just walking through the British Columbia forest. It's very clearly this is an alien planet. It's like this. It's an Earth forest. I
I
forget the
know
name of
the
that movie, but
I
it's
know the one you
excellent.
mean, but I know I have the wrong name in my head, so maybe
It's
about
that
it.
movie where Pedro Pascal plays a jaded old guy who has to look after a young girl and take her to safety.
It's a good thing that's not a genre unto itself, eh?
Mm-hmm. No,
Prospect.
Prospect. Thank you. So really excellent film. I recommend you watch Prospect. So I thought it was going to be like that, but excuse me. I like uh, sort of the loneliness in space. We talked a few weeks ago about the Life, the movie with Rebecca Ferguson and Jakey G,
Mm-hmm.
and how that film is great until Venom happens. And I thought a lot of that first time that movie when I'm watching The Spaceman as well. I think they did a really really good job, better than ISS did a few weeks ago, of capturing the claustrophobia and being in that space. I thought the spaceship itself was a really excellent character in this movie,
Mm-hmm.
and I had no idea we were going to have giant talking British spider, which is I'm not scared of spiders. This thing is fucking horrific. It's 80% spider and 20% human. It's got a human mouth and teeth. It's got a spider body and head and legs, apart from its two front legs that look like human arms in latex. It is absolutely. If you have any kind of spider aversion, you probably shouldn't watch this movie.
It's
And
a
there's one.
it's a little bit into the uncanny valley, like a little bit. Like it's a little bit too close to human for comfort, even though it's
It's absolutely. And there's a couple of moments where I there's one particular moment where I gasped out loud and held the sheet up to my face like I was clutching my pearls. Um, the What I really like as well is that you had a character who I could really relate to in terms of being a little bit selfish and following his own dreams, one of my special powers is um, regretting certain things I've done in the past and not making them more of situations and people when I had the opportunity to. And I really related to his character. I thought Sadler did a fantastic job as well. I really like how he's from the Czech space industry in this future, and he's not trying to do a Czech accent, but it's not his American accent. And everyone in this movie kind of did their own accent, but it's Czech. You just accept that it's Czech, and I really like that. But the framing of everything was fantastic. I haven't seen Chernobyl, but it's by the Chernobyl director, and this just looked fantastic. I thought the CG was really good, really embedded in what was going on, and I thought it was particularly. You said it was underwritten. I thought it was really well written. The whole thing, really, really well written, in that it didn't overegg its philosophy. It didn't overegg people's reactions. I thought Carrie Mulligan's lines, in particular, her reaction lines were really, really well written. I thought she was incredible in this
So
film.
for clarity, I
And
would say that everything that happens on Earth is excellent. Like everything with Carey Mulligan and with Rossellini and Nayar, I think is basically 100% great. And for me, it's really just how for such a wonderful performance from Sandler. It's just that I don't think it really gets again to the depth of the of what it's trying to do
yeah, I
in
think.
that part of it, which is why like it's not bad. Again, I don't dislike this movie. I just don't
Mhm.
love it. You
I,
know, it's sort of the hardest type of reaction to review because like everything I say sounds negative, but it's not bad. It's just that like it's not great for me.
yeah,
And
it is. It is a much more superficial character arc than other things in the genre for sure. But I kind of liked how it focused on him, like that the Dano's space spider can view memories with him and go over.
mhm,
It's a bit of it's a bit like It's a Wonderful Life, where you can review your past self to learn that that's not who you actually want to be at all. And I thought that was done really, really well. I
mhm,
liked the philosophy of it. I like the back and forth in space. I especially agree with you. Like Kunal Nayar is unrecognizable physically. All he's got is a mustache, but he's physically changed. Even his voice, his hands, everything. He was exceptional in this film. I
mhm.
really, really like. Holy shit! That's what you can do. I want to see more of you. Now, the one that you always wonder where it's going. The spaceship is moving towards a cloud. It turns out this word purple particle cloud has something to do with memory and storing memory, like of human civilization. And I don't think it quite sticks the landing. Like if you compare this to the films that it is sort of mirroring, if you think about Interstellar, if you think about the end of 2001 especially, which is the gold standard, it doesn't get anywhere close to having that kind of complexity. It's kind of oh instead of oh, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, that's
And
a good
i,
way to
I
put
don't
it.
I don't think it sticks the landing, which is
I would
it's a very simplistic ending, and it does what it's meant to do, but it doesn't leave you with that philosophical brain widening that Interstellar does, that 2001 does, which I think it wanted to do. Um, but the
I think
rest I
that's sort
really
of
liked.
this actually comes down to basically my big problem with it, right? In that like
Mm,
every film that you have compared it to so far. So, uh, Interstellar is one. Solaris, both versions of Solaris, 2001, I think are apt comparisons, and it is
mhm,
not as good. And to be fair, those are pretty high bars
mhm,
in all four cases. But it is a not as good version of any of those.
mhm.
It doesn't have the depth. It just doesn't have the depth to come anywhere close to those things.
Yeah, I agree.
And at times when those films are showing me things, I feel like this film is telling me things, which always takes me
Mhm,
a little bit out of it. And again, I don't think it's bad. I think a 3-star version of a 5-star movie is not a bad thing. It's just a thing that exists. I don't think it's gonna like win any awards, but again, like especially compared to the last thing we reviewed from Netflix, this thing clearly has the budget and care put into it that we always hope for. I don't think it's successful, but I think it was very well intentioned and just not not as good. You know, like it's but
yeah,
again, but not bad. It's just good. It's fine. It's fine.
yeah.
It's
Again,
sort
I don't.
This
I
is
don't
one
disagree.
where I'm just gonna again jump on my I'm always on team see it for yourself, and this is definitely one you should see for yourself and make your own mind up because uh, I think there's probably a bunch of you out there, listeners, who will connect with it very deeply, and there's probably at least a few of you who will be like, "What is this bullshit?" And
Mhm.
that's the beauty of art. So sorry, I kept interrupting you there.
No, I going back to what you're saying about the Netflix output. I think the biggest problem with Netflix output is that they don't often care about the visual storytelling, and that whoever they hire to direct it doesn't have the any kind of creative flair for showing us visually interesting things. And this is very much the exception to that rule. I don't remember the Chernobyl guy's name, but it's clear that he understands the visuals of telling a good story. And I don't disagree with really anything you're saying in terms of how simplistic it is, but it worked. The simplicity of it, I feel, was a plus. It is a plus point for me, which probably is going to end up with an extra star than you gave it. I liked the focus on him learning that it's not just about him, and I enjoyed the moments where that was manipulated and revealed. I really thought um, kind of my opinions get much closer to yours in the last sort of 20 minutes, I think, but the rest of the movie I enjoyed very, very much. I kind of like it streamlined. It's a very streamlined approach to that 2001 Interstellar Solaris idea of a hallucinating lonely person in space, um, which I'm always going to be there for. I really, really like that genre.
Mm-hmm.
It speaks to loneliness and claustrophobia, and but also the possibilities of the unknown. I think it's a genre I just really, really like, and so perhaps that's why its singular focus worked a bit more for me. But you're not wrong in anything you're saying. I don't disagree at all. But I would have loved if it had the philosophy it had explored for the first hour and 20 had been more had better thematic payoff in the last 20. I think it kind of let all of its philosophical underpinnings like go a little bit, and just instead of, oh well, here's the cloud, and I'm not going to spoil the ending, but it's not an especially impactful ending, which is a shame because I found the rest quite impactful, if that makes
No, and
sense.
I haven't. This is based on a book, and I looked it up afterward, and the ending is also quite different from the book. So I
Oh,
wonder.
really?
I wonder if
Interesting.
I mean, a bunch of it is different from the book, to be fair, but like the ending in particular
Mhm.
is quite different from the book, and
Interesting.
makes me want to read it. And I wonder about the version of the movie that goes with the book ending, uh, what that would look like. But
Is the book called Spaceman as well?
no, it's called Spaceman of Bohemia, I think. Yeah, Spaceman of Bohemia by
Oh yeah.
Yaroslav Kalfar.
Oh, okay, wicked. I'll read that. Apparently, this film has been finished for like 4 years, and at one point, people were wondering if it was even going to come out. So I'd be interested in that story as well.
Huh. I thought that it. Oh yeah, principal photography in 2021. So yeah, it's a few minutes for sure. Probably.
Okay.
I mean, post production and then the trade
COVID.
group. You know, the strikes of last year would have delayed it as
Mm-hmm.
well because then no one
Mm-hmm.
could promote it. So
Mm-hmm.
I will say this: when there's music, it's great because Max Richter is great. Um,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so
How many stars are you going for here?
that's three. It's perfectly fine. 3-star movie. You know, again, it lacks the depth I wish it had, but it's still good.
Mm-hmm.
Still
Mm-hmm.
still worth forming your own opinion about. Still worth seeing for yourself.
Yes.
You?
It's a four. It's a 4 star for me. The simplicity and focus of it really worked for me, and I do love that genre. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a 4. I really enjoyed it. I just wish it had found itself a bit more in the ending, but I really enjoyed it.
I mean, it sounds like we're fairly close to being on the same page, except for that the
Yeah,
ending is a bigger problem for me.
I know. I think your my 4 is a few inches ahead of it being a 3, but yeah, absolutely
Yeah.
good.
Well, good. Well, that's 2 new movies, folks, and they're both available to stream or rent. And you can do that if you go to the homepage for this episode, which is going to be linked in the show notes, as it always is. There you'll find, or you just, again, go to awesomefriday.ca, find this episode. We always post JustWatch-powered links that will direct you to where you can buy, rent, or stream the films we talk about. And if you use those links, we do get a small commission. So please do that and help us keep the lights on. And if you happen to be looking at one that doesn't have any streaming offers at the moment, come back. They update automatically as availability changes. So, if a film leaves Netflix and goes to Crave or something, like that'll be reflected. So search up the movie you want to watch on our website and use that link to watch it.
Yes.
You can also... Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I thought you were taking a breath. We should talk about our plans for next week, because we're not doing an episode next week.
Yeah, that was going to come up next, actually. So we are taking a break week next week. Because I will be traveling. I'm going to a place, so I'm not going to be available. We may or may not... I think we'll probably set up the Oscar live blog, because next Sunday, the 10th of March, is the Oscars. So I might be able to join that textually like we have done in the past. But there won't be a podcast episode or a bonus episode. And we'll be back the following week with 2 new movies and probably a lot of Oscar opinions, would be my guess.
I think so.
So do look out for that. Our next episode will be on or about March the 17th. And on that day, I'll also be joining the Lambcast again. So that's interesting.
Wow, busy man.
Apparently, yeah.
That's
good. I don't know if you're a member of the Lamb, but if you're listening to this and you're a member of the large association of movie blogs, this week's movie of the month poll is up, and one of the choices is mine. So I encourage you all to go and vote for The Last Starfighter, so that on the 17th we can talk about The Last Starfighter for 90 minutes.
Yeah, I'm going to vote for that for sure.
What else? So totally lost my train of thought. So yeah, no episode next week. If you've liked the episode, though, do check out. Also, we do have a Patreon and a Ko-fi. If you're a member of our Patreon, which does start at just $2 Canadian per month, you do get a bonus episode every week. This week, again, we talked about Dune and a few other science fiction-y things. It is much closer to just what it's like to hang out with us. But I think the discussion is generally always interesting. You can go back. There's a number of episodes from the back catalog from last year that are available to listen to if you want to get a sense of what that's like. But again, support starts at just $2 Canadian a month, and you can't even buy a cup of coffee for that little money. So do that. If you'd like to follow up with us, like if you have opinions about Zone of Interest or Spaceman, like hit us up on the social medias. You can find us at Awesome Friday CA on Twitter or Instagram. You can find Simon nowhere, because he's not on social media anymore, because he's a smart, well-adjusted person.
Wow.
And if you want to find me on social media, I am at SmatthewAF on most of the platforms, mostly active on Threads at this point, which I think is an interesting transition. You can also find us at our homepages, the site awesomefriday.ca, Simon temporarypen.com, and me stretched.ca for all my recent output. Last but not least, we are here in Vancouver on the unceded and ancestral territory of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations. And one last time, thank you so much for listening and for joining us on this Awesome Friday.
Bye.